All right. Well, I got 8:31, and we have never gotten through one of these calls with answering everyone's questions. So we're gonna kick it off. I want to thank. My name's Josh Lunger, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Grand Rapids Chamber. I want to thank Mark Allen, the President of uh, our favorite, one of our top three favorite coastal chambers, the Grand Haven Chamber. Rachel from the Muskegon Chamber, and they're going to close out with some comments as well. But our plan today is a real quick, fast moving run through. Lisa, who's our favorite question answer, who is so good at getting through things quickly, has a top 10 received questions that the chambers have kind of put together saying this is what we're getting a lot of. We're going to run through that quick, and then we're going to do questions in the chat, and we're going to get through as many as we can. I'm going to try to condense ones that we get repeated of. We'll do our very best to get those. After the meeting, we will share the slides. We'll share the links to some of the other resources that we want to make sure you're aware of and continue to access as they continue to be updated, especially at Leo. And then we'll try to do any further additional follow-up. And the recording will be on there as well. So with that, Lisa, we'll give it over to you. I want to thank our supporting sponsors for the Grand Rapids Chamber's GA team, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield, Amway, Business United, and Roman Manufacturing. And Lisa, it's all yours.
All right, great. Good morning. It's great to be back with you today. And, again, I can't thank the chambers enough for all your advocacy work on this and getting this across the line, because the amendments are a lot better. So here we go. If you front load the 72 hours, can we count the time, take credit for that? The answer is it depends, and that's great because I'm already starting to sound like a lawyer this morning. But basically, frequently asked question number 15 kind of addresses this. And the answer is, if you gave them the time and they've used it and it's gone effective February 21st, you're going to have to give them more. If they still have some time available, you can take credit for that. So you may want to consider accruing for this year if that's a hard pill to swallow, or something like that. So
I just want to point out, Lisa, for this, that's something that heading into the effective date, we were being, a lot of the calls I've seen was kind of consistent that you could count it.
I know.
And this is, so I want to make sure, because we've gotten some very nuanced questions around this, that people understand that it's a change from what we have maybe shared previously.
Sure, it is. And then it's also something to consider for those on that anniversary date. So if you gave them time last October, you've got a bigger chunk probably to cover. And then, of course, you'll be watching it if you're a small employer implementing October 1st. How is accrual tracked for those commissioned employees that are compensated on duties versus hours? And is there a difference versus partial and full commission? So this one's a little tricky. Frequently asked question number 3 kind of talks about this, and we'll get a little deeper into that on the next one because it's something like that. So when you're trying to determine hours worked and you don't have a clear path, consider that. Are they salaried? Does the 40 hours that we can assume they work make sense? You could have them track their hours. You could also consider front loading for this group. Or is there a job offer, employment agreement, commission agreement, or some kind of schedule that says, here's the expected hours, here's how we're going to calculate the wage? As far as partial versus full when calculating the hourly rate, Leo frequently asked question number 21 talks about that employers are not required to include overtime pay, commissions in the calculation of employees' normal hourly wage base. So kind of hold a pin in that. So those are the things that you're going to consider as far as determining hours. Now, this one here asks if our part-time people have complete autonomy over their schedules. So that frequently asked question number 3 reads, yes, if the individual schedules their own hours and there is no adverse action if the individual does not schedule a minimum number of hours. So likely in the partial commission base, there's going to be some kind of hour schedule, and I would say they would not be exempted. But this could apply for your owners. It could apply for those commission-based, but I would encourage you to consult your attorney for the exemption. Can new hires be classified separately? from employees that are front-loaded in order to track their hours. Yes, you can manage different classifications differently. So for instance, you could set those commission people out differently, new hires out differently, part-time. My preference is that we accrue in the first year for new hires, interns, and seasonal people until they reach that next year, next benefit year or whatever established period, because some of our companies do accrue for maybe the first 2 or 3 years and then put them into a front-loading cycle. A special note on new hires too, under Leo frequently asked question 15, if you accrue ESTA time, you can enforce a waiting period not longer than 120 days. If you front load, you cannot enforce that waiting period. Some attorneys disagree on this, but that is how Leo interprets it. And until we get more guidance from the courts or such, we really want to hold tight to these Leo frequently asked questions. How much notice do small employers have to give for the October 1st compliance? Leo doesn't really break this out. The attorneys say that we can wait to October 1st, or by October 1st, I should say. So do what makes sense. Follow your communication practices. Be mindful of your culture. You may want to share some information now and then inform them of the specifics later. Minors under the age of 18 covered under the youth employment are exempt from having benefits under ESTA, but they do still count toward the calculation for the number of employees that we hire. And that's all W-2 employees. So if your owners are W-2 employees, they count as well. That's from number 5, but the third bullet in that states employees 11 or more employees for 20 or more work weeks. The youth may not be employed that long. So take a look at that. If we want to combine plans allowing up to 36 hours of use for flex PTO within the 72, can we do that as long as they're both tracked? I'm not quite sure I understand the flex, but as I understand it, most people allow people to flex time during their work week to go to the doctor, maybe go purchase a car, those sorts of things. Keep in mind, going to the doctor would be an ESTA related issue. Going to buy a car would not be. So then they have the choice that they could either make up the time later on in the week, or they could apply ESTA or vacation time to that. My thought on this is that if they make it up, they actually haven't used the time, so we're not tracking it. They're saving that in the bucket. If the question that you're asking is what can all be in the bucket, Leo addresses that in number 19, that you can create you do not have to create a separate bank. Your policy is just fine as long as it provides at least the same benefits as provided in ESTA. It may be used for the same purposes, under the same conditions, and accrued at a rate equal to or greater than the rate in ESTA. If you post the poster, are you in compliance with the notice? No, you still have to provide written notice to your employees in probably a policy format that includes how much time is allotted for front load or accrual, what is your 12-month period, under what circumstances may they use ESTA, and I'd copy those 5 bullets right from the poster. And retaliation is prohibited, and you had a right to file a claim. Please see the poster. Also, I wanted to note going forward on this, those hired after those respective compliance dates, as we hire them, we have to provide this written notice as well as part of your onboarding. And if we don't clearly break it out in the policy about part-time, when you hire a part-time, you have to clearly give them written notice as to their expected schedule so that they can, and give them their ESTA time as well. On the policy notes, you want to document how you provided that policy. We don't necessarily have to have them to sign off on the policy. It's a good practice, but you at least need to document that, yes, every employee did receive that notice. Can we have any type of incentive? It's attendance incentive, or would this be looked at as negative action? Leo hasn't addressed this yet. Of course, we don't have any court cases. It says it explicitly prohibits employers from interfering, restraining, employees from exercising their rights. And the last sentence here, an employer's absence control policy must not treat earned sick time taken under this act as absence that may lead to retaliated personnel action. So I know we've
Lisa,
looked, yeah.
I was wanted to add, Muskegon Chamber had some good questions on this from one of their members that was very specific because they wanted to have an incentive policy. And what it's not in their FAQ, but what Sean from Egan told me in their response was, any incentive that doesn't reward, like ESTA has to be excluded from it. So I would hope they would add this to their FAQ at some point because I know there's a lot of employers that have had this question, but they're basically saying what you're saying, which is be very cautious because Leo is, again, at least informally saying, yeah, so long as there's not any impact on ESTA use time, maybe you could go forward, but it's going to be messy.
Yeah, I know, and it's hard because they talk about FMLA sometimes, but they've stayed pretty far away from it. And this would also kind of be the case for that holiday pay, right? If you have to work the day before and the day after, if you exclude for ESTA, you'll run into the same problem there. Employees covered by a collective bargaining that is completely silent. Do you have to have a ESTA? Yes. If they say something about sick pay, even if it's less than the 72 or 40 hours, then you can wait till it expires. The same thing as if the bargaining agreement literally says, we do not have any sick time. So if they specifically mention sick time, whether they're giving benefits or not, you can wait until that agreement expires. But if there's nothing, then you have to comply as of February 21st or October 1st. Can you require them to use it in full day increments? No, you can. For ESTA purposes, it's 1 hour or the smallest increment of time. Tardies. Most people bump this back up to the 1 hour increment. However, if you give more time off, like 120 days, you can require that non-use of time can be in longer increments, as long as you allow the ESTA is used in the 1 hour or less increments. That's those questions.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Oh, what are we going to do when this is done? All right. First question. Can you prorate for the year if front loading and a new hire starts, for example, in August?
Yes. You can definitely either put them on an accrual basis or you can prorate based on the percentage of time left to your next benefit year.
Are employers responsible for the cost of completing FMLA paperwork if FMLA runs concurrently with ESTA?
No, you want to specify that you're requiring the paperwork for FMLA, not because they're asking for ESTA. And it's possible under intermittent FMLA that we haven't even reached the more than 3 days that we can require paperwork for ESTA. So be careful there.
Does the 120-day waiting period apply to rehires if they were rehired after 60 days from previous employment?
Yeah, I believe so.
What is considered part-time as part of ESTA?
They don't, less than 40 hours. No, they don't define this at all. Everybody accrues 1 hour at 30 hours.
Yeah. Is it okay to have a policy in our handbook? Have the policy in our handbook?
Well, as long as you can satisfy the written documentation. So if it's posted separately, if it's on an intranet, but again, you have to make a point of making sure it's in their hands first, right? You can't just simply post it up there.
Could you explain the CBA expectations more? We have a per service group that is acknowledged, specifies how they will be paid, but not in our sick pay section, as they do not receive sick time, but sick time is mentioned for those that it applies to.
So I'm going to say it probably because the FAQ literally says if they mention sick time and say that there are no benefits, then the collective bargaining agreement is in place until it expires, and you won't have to comply with ESTA.
Are there any Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just to say, you might want to check with your attorney who helps you with your bargaining process.
Are there any requirements for employers to give employees their available ESTA hours, especially if accruing instead of front loading? Are there any questions?
They get them as soon as they've accrued them, other than that waiting period.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a question of, like, let's say I've only accrued 2 hours and I need a full day off. You would give me the 2 hours paid for ESTA and the rest would be unpaid, and then there's possibility that I could get an attendance point for at least half the day since I didn't have enough hours to cover it.
Question. I hope the answer is there's a solution out there, but should everyone employ an HR professional or attorney to ensure compliance? Or is it possible for a small nonprofit to gather information from the state and great webinars like this? I'm really asking if the state is going to are they going to be unforgiving with enormous fines if we accidentally miss something?
Um, I can't remember. I think it's number 36 that talks about the fines that we have, and they're more so related to whether or not we posted or we gave a written notice. The most of this, since they took out a lot of the concerns we had as far as penalties and civil suits and things like that, really the harm is that it'll go to Leo. Leo will determine if we did it right or didn't do it right, and then they'll ask us to correct it, and that'll be the fix, right? So you're in pretty good shape, but like if you had a commission or you had an owner or something like that, it might be worth talking to someone. Give me a call.
Thanks, Lisa. What is the pay requirement for 100% commission employees? Is that ESTA requirement?
Yeah, I think I believe that one, you certainly want to look at that exemption for them and can you carve them out? They're gonna be able to take the time without a penalty, but their pay might continue to be as it always is, quarterly, annually, and usually these are highly compensated people. But there are some nuances, so you might want to talk through it more specifically.
The next question I think is addressing some of the confusion, and I believe our previous communications, we thought the waiting period would be included for front loading, but the question is regarding the 120 days. I thought I saw verbiage stating immediate use for availability. So can you clarify front loading versus incremental in the 20-day waiting period?
Yeah, if you're giving the full front load 72 hours or some kind of proration, but it's, Lisa, here's your days, 3, 6, 9, whatever you're going to give me, that's front loading. And if you give it to me, then supposedly I have it now to use. If you're working on an accrual basis, I accrue it and I can use it as I accrue it. And so therefore, that's the only time you can have the 120-day waiting period.
If you use front load and an employee uses all of their ESTA hours and then leaves the organization, can you recover any of those hours paid based on how many they actually accrued?
Leo does address this. They say we can, like all time with this, good luck. You certainly want to put that in writing ahead of time as far as with your policy, because in the state of Michigan, under the Payment of Wages Act, we cannot deduct time from their paycheck unless we have written authorization for that as well. So just be careful there. You can certainly try.
How does the 3-day no call, no show now work after the changes?
I think it still works the same way, right? You can enforce that policy. They just remind us to be careful in case someone was in a coma for 5-7 days, right?
Yeah, I think what I've been explaining to folks that they've got questions on is what changed when we made the amendments. And essentially, you can now have a written policy that says, so let's say Jackie's sick. She wakes up and is like, man, I got a cold. And we decide that she has to follow whatever our written policy that we provided is. So long as the key catch that Leo was pointing out, so long as it allows for her to notify us after being alerted of the thing. So you can't say, the question I got a lot is, we require 3 hours notice. Can that be in the policy? No, because if she wakes up an hour before the workday, that she can't notify you in accordance with the policy. So you just need to make sure that it allows for something to have happened and then for her to follow the written policy. So what I think the big improvement is, before it was just as soon as practicable. Now it's as soon as practicable or following the policy that you provided. There's also Lisa, I've been trying to separate my brain from ESTA for like a month now, but maybe it's a little fuzzy. There's also, if you make any changes, you have 5 days to notify your employees on this part. Anything you want to share on that?
That's correct. And that's unique because most times they say give notice, but they don't tell us the window. In ESTA, they do give us the 5 day
Okay.
period. And you're right, clean up those call-in policies. And then I think the way it reads is be reasonable, right? You know, if I was driving to work and all of a sudden I felt sick and had to pull over, you know, yeah, I didn't give you the hour notice, but I will as soon as I can, right? And I think most employers aren't looking to fire or discipline our employees in those situations.
All right. We have a W-2 doctors. We have W-2 doctors who have an employment contract and are paid a percentage of the work they do. Is it correct that they are covered by ESTA?
Yeah, if they're a W-2 employee, they're counted. Can we find an exemption for them? Possibly.
Yeah, we've had a lot of questions around substitute teachers and the like, where they kind of pick their own hours and there isn't a punishment per se if they don't pick up. But Leo's been very clear every time we've asked, no matter how we asked it, that they are covered and be required to receive benefits.
That picking your own hours, like in the teacher situation, I mean, they've got to be there, what, between 7 and 3, right? They're not picking between 5 and 7 p.m. at night, you know.
Yeah. If using the accrual method and transferring hours into the new period, what is the total amount of ESTA hours that you can use in 1 year?
72 or whatever you would have accrued, right? You can set your limits that way.
And it'd be 40 for 10 employees and less.
Yes.
Can having all ESTA information in an ESTA policy within employee handbook and asking for acknowledgement service providing notice?
As long as that policy has those 4 elements in it, you know, what is ESTA? How can they use it? What's our benefit year? Yes.
If we start new hires on an accrual method, yet all other employees are front loaded, can we switch to new hires to front loaded after 60 days? Or can we only switch at the beginning of a benefit year?
Yeah, they really don't like some kind of hybrid version of it. They want you to get in one boat or the other until the next benefit year or next policy break happens. So I'd be careful with that. Could talk through it though. I mean, I could talk through it with them with more specifics. Sorry.
Updated. So their PTO policy was updated to accommodate ESTA. We had employee meetings. The Leo poster on the communication board. Is there any additional notifications required for the employee?
I'm sorry, it was kind of buffering or something for me. Can you?
Yeah, I got a notice. I'm sorry. It was me. The PTO policy was updated. So they updated their PTO policy. They had an employee meeting or meetings. The Leo poster is on the communication board. Is there any additional notification required?
No, I think if the meeting shared those elements, the policy has those elements, you're in good shape.
Can an EE, I should probably know what that is, use ESTA hours they have not yet accrued?
No. Well, I mean, you could let them go in advance. For instance, in that situation where I only accrued 2 hours, I need 8 hours, you know, I'm going to accrue the more hours. You could do that. You run that risk again if I quit that I've had more time, but that's a policy choice.
We give PTO employers we give PTO hours on the employee's anniversary date. If an employee had less than 72 remaining, so this is that question we're getting a lot of lately, and it was one of your top ones. So if an employee has less than 72 remaining as of 2/21/2025, do we need to add hours so that each employee has 72 hours available?
Yeah. On 2/21, did they have 72 hours? On 10/1, did they have 72 hours? Or whatever their prorated amount would be based on the hours they work.
And if folks have questions, they can email me. My contact information is right there. We've helped people with some math. And I just think people are looking for someone to say, yes, you're doing this right. Because it is confusing and it is something that we communicated differently in the past. What are the consequences of not providing the required poster and notice properly?
There are some fines. I think the poster is like $100, $1,000. It's infrequently asked question number 36, I believe. But it's not quite the court cases and the class action suits that we thought we might have seen.
So, there's a little more certainty around it, at least.
Right.
Do you have ESTA time? Do you have to show ESTA time earned on and use on a pay stub, or can it be tracked elsewhere?
So this isn't clear, but the gist of it is that they have to know how much time is available to them at a given point. So if they can look it up in your payroll system, if you put it on stubs, those kinds of things, you're fine. But they just have to know what's available to them.
Another question that we got a lot of in the first couple of weeks is, please clarify, are nonprofits required to participate in ESTA?
Yes, unfortunately. We'd hope with that little line out, but no, they're in.
So if I change my policy, I have a 5-day window to notify my employees if it's related to ESTA. I mean,
Yes.
that's what the law
Yeah.
says. Yeah. So you would have to notify them. Otherwise, especially, I think it's, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, you're the expert. It's related to the leave notice requirement section where it says if any changes are made, you have. So if
Yeah.
again, if Jackie's sick, because Jackie's just always getting sick, and I changed the policy, I didn't tell her within 5 days, I can't have any type of negative action on her on that.
That's correct. Yeah.
Stop getting sick, Jackie. Is the employee, I can't say that anymore, can I? Is the employee acknowledgement of ESTA policy, sorry, is the employee acknowledgement of ESTA policy notice a best practice or a requirement? So saying, do we need to have an acknowledgement or a signature or some other form?
It doesn't say we have to specifically have their written signature on it. We would need to document how we provided the information. Was everybody available? I think Leo would kind of ding us if we had an employee meeting and we knew a third of our employees were gone from that meeting, right? And then just posted it up on the internet. So you want to make sure really that everybody had the information in their hands, in writing, at least at some point. Signature is a great way to do that.
Is there a simple document that we can use to send to our employees for compliance? We should be able to provide something like that. Maybe we'll want to include that in the follow-up if we can.
Yeah,
if not in the immediate follow-up, we'll share it elsewhere. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I think you're going to share our frequently asked questions page, and there are samples.
Oh, great. Great.
They'll be in the chat.
They'll be in the chat and in the follow-up then. If an employee accrues 72 hours in a year and carries it over, do we need to accrue new ESTA hours in the new year?
They'll carry over up to 72. I'm sorry, you said accrual, right?
Yes. So they accrued 72 hours in a year and carried it over. They didn't use any. Do we need to accrue new hours in the new year because they're starting with 72?
They're going to continue to accrue, but that's the whole point of carrying over the 72 is like, let's say you start your accrual again, but you're really always accruing, but January 1, the policy starts over again. I've only accrued 1 hour by, January 10th, let's say, and I need more time. That's why the carryover can help, right?
Well, and I think thinking about maybe the purpose of this question is, maybe they don't have to keep track, but yeah, you would have to, because let's say they get to 100 hours and they take 72. They can't use them that year, but they're gonna have to carry over at least up to 72 the next year. So you would need to track that because you have to have a minimum of 72 or 40 carried over if you use accrual.
Yes,
if they're there.
Yeah, if you're on accrual, you're tracking, right? If you're front loading, you gave it to them.
If employee has ESTA hours earned but is requesting FMLA for serious health conditions and has not been off for 3 consecutive days, can we simply follow FMLA and give an FMLA documentation with FMLA medical certification?
In that situation where you haven't determined FMLA, you're probably running that clock of ESTA, and it would be FMLA concurrently, right? And so you might need to ask for documentation with the FMLA, but the ESTA is not. That's not why we're asking for documentation. Did that answer?
People ask good questions. So we're doing these calls. If applying a 120-day waiting period for new hires, can you apply attendance policy or discipline during that orientation period as employees can't access their paid time?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes, they're accruing it, but they don't.
Marcus, did you come up with that one? That was a good one. No, somebody in the chat did.
If it's before the waiting period or if they're out of time, right? They're no longer protected by ESTA and your attendance policies can apply.
Do the sick hours have to show separately from vacation? Our company gets a total number of PTO hours to be used for vacation and sick.
Yes, you still have to know ESTA use, right? So, so you want them to identify, is this vacation? Is this personal? Is this ESTA? Or they can give you notice, right? Simply me telling you I went to the doctor tells you that it's ESTA.
Do we need to pay out unused hours?
No, no, just the accrual you have to carry over, but you can pay that out as well. And otherwise, at the time of termination, you do not have to pay out unless your policy states so.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you use a single PTO bucket and they didn't use it, you probably still have based on the policy.
Based on policy, you don't have to.
Okay. Um, sorry. Are interns included in ESTA hours and tracking if they are receiving class credit and a weekly stipend?
Yeah, this is the paid and unpaid, right? Unpaid interns are out, paid interns are in, and they would count. But again, they might not work for the 20 weeks or full as far as counting for your employees, or whether or not they accrue enough time.
Every intern who ever wanted to do more than 120 days just got let go. Can ESTA be used during maternity leave?
Yes, I think, kind of like that waiting period for the short-term disability. A lot of us have the 7-day waiting period. We would apply ESTA time if it's available.
When reimbursing staff for acquiring a doctor's note for a large procedure or surgery and recovery, what portion of the cost are we responsible for?
I'm sorry.
Reimbursing staff for acquiring a doctor's note for a large. So they're requiring their staff. It's the last question in there. When requiring staff to get a doctor's note for something that happened, a large procedure, what portion of the cost are we responsible for? The entire procedure, follow-up appointments? Should just be the statement that says this is what happened.
Yeah. Well, it depends. If it's a procedure that doesn't qualify for FMLA, yeah, if the doctor requires some kind of fee for it to provide that notice, that's the fee that you would pay, not necessarily the copay on that or such. If it's FMLA related, I think we could use that, hey, we're only requiring the documentation for FMLA, and then we don't have to pay that fee.
If we accrue PTO for new hires, but some new hires negotiate their vacation time, is there any risk to the company for giving different amounts of time to different employees? Any advice for employers?
No, that's a policy thing. So if I'm accruing 2 weeks, but Josh negotiated 3 weeks, he's just going to accrue time at a faster rate than I am. And so when it's available, if it's related to ESTA, you can use it. But that's policy decision.
And then is there a cap on amount of ESTA hours that are carried over?
72 or 40.
And if we front load, we don't have to carry over.
You don't have to carry over. You don't have to pay out. And if you are accruing and do have to carry over, you do have the option to pay that out as well. And a note on that too.
Oh, go ahead.
If you terminate someone and you pay all that time out and you bring them back within 2 months, you don't have to reinstate those hours because you paid them out.
If we front load time and our PTO policy currently is over 120 hours, do we still need to separate ESTA and PTO on how that time is recorded when used?
Yeah, you have to track that ESTA hours, right? So
do we have to ask the employee? Yes. So you're suggesting that they have to ask their employee, oh, you guys, thought we were done, and now my questions are adding up. Do we have to? Oh, where did it go? Do we have to ask the employee if they are calling in related to ESTA or PTO?
Yeah, that's part of the policy, part of the call-in procedure to please identify what it's for. If they don't give it to us, but they tell us they're going to a doctor's appointment, we can assume that it's related to ESTA. Again, if they want to get paid, they have to let us know it's related to ESTA.
Can I just jump in here real quick, Josh, on that one? So if they don't tell us, I want this applied to ESTA, but they're out sick with a cold or they're going to the doctor or whatever, we can assume to take it out of their ESTA bucket, or do they specifically need to tell us? That's a question that we've been getting.
Well, it needs to be enough to tell us that it does meet those 5 bullets, right? If I just say I'm out today, right, and I don't tell you anything, you're going to want to follow up with me as to a reason so you know how to apply your policy. And you can ask that in general terms. They don't have to provide the specifics, right? But they do have to give you enough information to know whether or not ESTA applies or such.
Great. Thanks, Lisa.
What if we are providing only a single bucket, front loaded, and the leave notice requirements for our entire bucket are the same as ESTA? Does it matter then? Because we're essentially saying, because a lot of people were trying to find ways just to simplify it, right? So,
Yeah.
like Jackie is sick again, but she's
sick of you.
Yeah, she is. I've been back for like 24 hours from vacation and she's tired of me. So she's sick again, but we've done front loaded. Our leave notice requirements are in line for the entire PTO. And she's like, hey, I'm just taking time off. Do I still need to go and track it? I mean, everything we're doing is saying this is one bucket, one item, do whatever you want.
Well, we have to track the time for payroll, and we have to be able to supply records whether or not it was ESTA, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, I would try to get that. If they absolutely aren't going to give it that to us, as long as they were paid, we didn't discipline them, we didn't penalize them, then you're probably meeting the standard.
Okay. All right, let me get caught up. We are doing accrual for this year. There is not going to be a total of 12 months as we are doing calendar. Do we have to do anything special for 2025?
Accrual is great, right? You're just doing the 1 hour for every 30 hours of however much time they work between now and the end of the year. So you're good.
If we have part-time employees that determine their own working hours and schedule, do we proceed with the assumption that they are exempt, or do we need to apply for an exemption?
You don't have to apply for the exemption, but, and you would need to note it in the policy, these people are exempt, but be very careful about what you mean by setting their own schedule. Again, like that substitute teacher we brought up, they're not really setting their full schedule. They can't teach at 9 o'clock at night if they want to. They don't have complete autonomy of when they come in and out.
And that's one where I would want to see something in writing from our friends at Leo in an email saying, yes, this meets the requirements of the act.
Yeah, and back to that question, you can reach out to Leo and ask them, get their opinion on this for sure.
Yeah, if that individual wants to connect with us, we can also send it directly to some of their staff and see if they can agree with you on the exemption. If requesting a doctor's note, if absence for over 3 days, are we responsible for the cost of the appointment if the employee has to see a doctor for a note to be provided? So they're going in, do we have to pay for the entire cost of the appointment along with a charge for the note?
It's more tied to the charge for creating the note, not the visit. But it could get a little gray depending on how that goes. I can't remember the exact terminology in the frequently asked question. So I might have to revisit that with somebody.
Okay.
But generally if they charge for the note, that's what we're paying for.
So someone wants to clarify, if I gave an employee 80 vacation hours and 24 personal hours, 1/1 of this year, and they used 56 of them, leaving them with 48 as of 2/21 ESTA date. That means I have to give them another 24 hours to get them back up to 72 on ESTA on 2/21.
That's correct. Yeah. Or you could consider accruing for that classification employees. You can't just accrue for Lisa because she used her time, but all employees could accrue this year, and then we'll give them their time on their anniversary or their January 1, whatever your benefit year is. But yeah, that's the tough pill to swallow with this.
Yeah, that was unexpected for us. We have a 3-day waiting period for STD, short-term disability. Can we require the employee to use available sick time for the 3-day waiting period? Or is this only if an employee requests to use the time?
I think you can apply it. Yep.
How are employers managing ESTA with salaried employees that have some attendance concerns throughout the year?
With salaried employees, you have to remember we cannot deduct from their salary unless it's an absence of a full day or more. But then ESTA would pay for that day if it were a full day more, if they have it, right? And we can always coach our employees, right? Lisa, there's pattern absence, or in Josh's case, he wants to coach Jackie all the time, but we can always coach our employees. Look, there's abuse here. There's, patterns here. Not that we're not going to give them the time under their rights, but, you can coach up to discipline if there are no protected ESTA provisions at that time.
Good question. Someone has a follow-up on the 100% commission employee. If they take one day off, how do we determine the pay rate for that one day? They do not have an hourly pay rate or a base wage. From what I see, it must be at least minimum wage. Is that correct?
It does have to be at least minimum wage. And I think this is a conversation that we have to talk through more specifics, look to see if we can exempt them and classify them differently in this case. Because it doesn't make sense if someone's making $300,000 on commission and we're going to pay them a minimum wage for that day. So I think you got to work through that on specifics.
If we're using the one PTO bucket, why does it matter if their day off was related? So this is what I was trying to get at, was related to ESTA or not, if they're providing 100 hours of PTO for using for any reason. Just trying to, again, that's the thing. People are trying to simplify this and avoid some of the headache.
Well, it's really just because we have the record keeping requirement that we have to be able to track and show hours used for ESTA. So it doesn't really matter as far as them calling in, but I would still, try to have them either self-identify in your payroll system or a slip or something like that would be a cleaner way to handle that.
I don't know if we did that yet. So I don't know if our people are on the call. We might have to make some adjustments. Thanks, Lisa. If employees set their schedule by signing up for a shift and are not required to sign up at all, can they be considered exempt? Again, I think the shift is the problem because you're saying the shift is 9 to noon or whatever.
Right. It's not
what we've been told is they are not exempt.
Yeah. I think you think about it in the nonprofit world, this could very much be, hey, Lisa, I'm coming to work, or Lisa's coming to work for you to do this project. She can work whatever hours she wants to do, as many hours a week as it takes her to get it done. We don't care. Now she's exempt. But if we need Lisa to come in and work this project and she needs to be here Monday and Tuesday on these hours, now I don't have that autonomy.
For part-time employees, we are tracking by the accrual method, 1 hour for every 30. This will be their own separate Michigan sick time policy. Yes. I'm not sure if I'm not understanding the question. I think they're just.
They possibly carved out ESTA separately?
Yeah, which for accrual makes sense.
Yeah, if you're accruing 1 hour for every 30 hours, you've met the standard. And then if you let them use it in for the purposes, and at least in 1 hour or less increments, you're fine.
If we have employees that have over 72 hours of vacation, do we have to also provide an additional 72 hours of ESTA available? Also, as employees earn vacation between their first 2 years, they can earn 40 hours each year. Can I name 40 hours vacation and total hours meet 72 hours?
Yeah, this was that kind of pulling from one bucket to another bucket situation. As long as you at least give what they would, the 72, the 40, that sort of thing, you're in compliance, right? You don't have to give additional time. And
then I got a lot of people are kind of going on about the understanding, again, kind of like we were doing at our office.
The front loading.
Yeah, you're front loading. You've got no carryover. We don't have to track, correct? And right. We are doing this via PTO policy where we front load anywhere from 80 to 160 hours and it can be used for any purpose.
That's correct, but they still have to give you some kind of notification that they're out. You do have to have some kind of payroll records for this, right? But yes, I'm using my time, right? If we can get a little more detail and know that it's us, the better, right?
Yep. I see. So, okay. So we've implemented better tracking, for example, because we need to have a record of the use, but we're not tracking the same specific as if this was an accrual and it was a separate bucket.
Correct.
Okay. All right. What if we front load at least 160 hours on their anniversary? They have less than 72 hours of PTO as the effective date. We allow them to borrow from their future allotment when they've dipped below 72 hours before their anniversary date, up to whatever they need to have 72 hours. So they're trying to borrow from future. I'm guessing the answer is we can't do that.
No, actually, you can. You
Oh,
can.
really?
Yes, you can. So if I know I'm going to get another 160 next year, you can pull that into this year as long as then in 2026 I have at least
72.
the 72 hours. Yes, some of the attorneys are saying you can do that. I would definitely document that with them so that next year they're not saying, hey, where's my 160 hours?
For 2025 with our small company, it may make sense to accrue hours. What is the date we need to use for beginning the accrual?
2/21 or October 1st, we're accruing on.
Yeah, and so if you're a small business is 10 employees or less, it's October 1st.
That's
If
right.
any more than that, it's 2/21 of the previous 2/21. And keep in mind that if you had an employee count above 10 at any time, you're in the large business category.
That's correct. Yeah.
Because we know like seasonal people had a lot of questions around, well, I'm at 5 employees, but once a year I'm at 11. Where do I fall? Unfortunately, in the large category. For part-time employees, go ahead.
It's 11 for 20 or more weeks, right?
Oh, yes.
Right. So as soon as you hit that, you're in, and you're in it for the next year, even if you slip back down. But,
For part-time employees, we are tracking by the accrual method, 1 hour for everything. Oh, it's a repeat question. Or I already did it? I'm confused. Is it okay to have a separate policy? Okay. Is it okay to have a separate policy for part-time employees from full-time? Oh, I see. So our full-time will have ESTA included in their PTO and part-time will have it accrued.
Yes, you could. Different classifications, not different people, but if we want to do part-time this way, commissioned that way, salaried this way, yes.
Yeah, I was trying to put Jackie on accrual, but they said I had to do all classification. I'm just kidding. If we do accrual method, but have a separate Michigan earned sick time bucket for our vacation accruals, our understanding and reading of the act is that an employee can use for any reason along with the usage as stated in the ESTA notice, correct? I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So number 15 goes through this quite a bit, and it gives several examples. So
okay.
As long as the time that you give meets the minimum threshold, can be used for the same purposes in the increment of 1 hour or less for ESTA, you're good.
Okay. For part-time employees, can we just pay them the ESTA hours in their next paycheck instead of letting them accrue ESTA and use it when they want?
So that's the thing. It's not a paycheck thing. The hours are as they are earned. So it doesn't have to wait until the next paycheck period, if that's the question that they're asking.
I think they're asking, can I just pay them an hour extra for every 30 instead of having them have this bucket and maybe impacting our availability?
No, I think we have to allow them to use it. We could pay it out at the end of the year and not carry it over, but I think we have to leave it still there.
Okay. That is the last question, and I say that with great hesitancy, which is hopefully means that everyone here got use of this call. Well, first of all, thank you, Lisa. You are so great at answering questions with great clarity and appreciate the depth of knowledge that you have on all of this. And then to my other partners, Mark and Rachel, before I let you kind of close us out, if you have anything to say, I just want to thank all the businesses that have engaged on this again. Please don't think if something is confusing still at the end of this that you can't reach out to us. We work for you, and we are all going to be sending to our respective members a follow-up with the slides, with the recording, and some of these links. So just tell us what you think is missing, and we will stay on it. Mark, Rachel, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would just again thank you to Lisa. Your Q&A sessions are incredibly informative, and today was no exception to that. And Jackie, I really hope you're feeling better soon, so that Josh can leave you alone for a little bit. But I think Josh mentioned, the slides, the links, and the recordings will all be sent out after this. If you still have a question, send it into your respective chamber. We will be happy to send that into all of our contacts and resources and find the appropriate answers for you. And again, Lisa, I go to your FAQ page frequently, and so we definitely appreciate that. I know Rachel wasn't able to jump on the call today.
She didn't make it.
I don't know if there's anybody from her team that's on here, but we have a lot of shared members, if you will, between the two chambers here. And I know that they all appreciate this work as well. So I don't want to speak for the Muskegon Chamber. If there's somebody else here, feel free to jump on. But thanks again, everyone. We're happy to help you. And as your Chamber of Commerce's, this is our job.
You do great work. We appreciate that.
All right. With that, we'll probably stay in touch. And as we approach the 10-1 date, I'm sure we'll get more questions. Please just feel free to reach out to us anytime.